You sold my house while I was learning how to walk again? The words came out more quietly than I expected. Vanessa stood at the far end of my son's dining room, one hand resting on a stack of folders. Ethan sat beside her, staring at the table. I had been home from the rehabilitation center for less than 3 hours. My left hip still ached when I stood too long. A folding walker rested beside my chair. 2 cardboard boxes labeled Moem sat near the hallway. At first, I thought they contained the clothes Ethan had brought from my house. Then I noticed my wedding photograph on top. My good dishes were wrapped beneath it. My address book. Robert's old work gloves. My life had been packed before anyone told me I was moving. The house was becoming too much for you, Vanessa said. Her voice was calm. Professional. The same voice she used when discussing insurance forms or monthly expenses. The roof needs work. The back steps are uneven. You cannot safely live there alone. That was not my question. She looked at Ethan. He still would not meet my eyes. I turned toward him. When did you sell it? Last Friday, he said. Last Friday, I had been walking 30 feet between 2 parallel bars while a therapist reminded me not to rush. Last Friday, my son had signed away the home where his father and I had lived for 38 years. Who gave you permission? Vanessa slid the folders toward me. You did. I opened the first one. My name appeared at the bottom of a financial power of attorney. I recognized the first 2 pages. I had signed them before surgery so Ethan could pay my medical bills and property taxes if I was unable to do so. But there was an additional page. It authorized the sale of real estate. I never saw this. Vanessa's expression did not change. There was also a professional assessment. She placed another document in front of me. It stated that I had shown signs of impaired decision-making during my hospital stay. I read the sentence twice. Then I looked at my son. Did you tell them I was confused? Ethan rubbed both hands over his face. Mom, you were on strong medication. For 2 days. You kept asking where Dad was. Robert had been gone for 16 months. I remembered waking after surgery and calling his name once. Pain can make old habits feel present. That did not make me incapable. Vanessa pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. We made the decision you were no longer able to make. A strange calm settled over me. Not peace. Something colder. Where am I supposed to live? We placed a deposit on a 1-bedroom apartment in a senior community, Ethan said. It has an elevator, meals, transportation. You chose that too. Neither of them answered. I closed the folder carefully. Who bought my house? Vanessa hesitated. Thomas Caldwell. And when does he take possession? He already has the keys. My hand tightened around the edge of the table. What happens tomorrow? Ethan finally looked at me. The contractor starts renovations in the morning. What renovations? Vanessa glanced down at the papers. They are removing the workshop first. Robert's workshop. The room he had built behind the garage with his own hands. The place where every important thing in our family had been repaired at least once. I pushed my chair back and reached for the walker. Ethan stood quickly. Mom, where are you going? To call the man who bought my house. Why? I looked at both of them. Because if that workshop is coming down tomorrow, then I have less than 24 hours to find out what your father never wanted anyone to touch. The guest room had been prepared before I came home. Fresh sheets. A night light near the floor. A plastic chair in the shower. Everything was thoughtful. That was what made it worse. My family had planned for me to stay without asking whether I wanted to. I closed the bedroom door and opened the first cardboard box. My winter coat was folded beneath a stack of towels. The next box held framed photographs, kitchen utensils, and the blue ceramic bowl Robert bought me at a county fair. Someone had wrapped each item carefully. Someone had entered every room of my house and decided what part of my life belonged in storage. On the dresser, I found a brochure. The cover showed two smiling women walking beside a garden. Underneath, in large blue letters, were the words, Independent Senior Living. A yellow note was attached. Deposit paid. Move-in available Monday. Ethan knocked once and entered before I answered. You should rest, he said. I had been resting for 6 weeks. Mom, your doctor said not to overdo it. My doctor did not tell you to sell my house. He looked toward the boxes. We were trying to make things easier. For whom? He sat on the edge of the chair near the window. I held up the brochure. You already chose an apartment. It is a good place. That was not my question. He lowered his eyes. I asked for copies of every document connected to the sale. Ethan hesitated. Vanessa has the complete file. Then ask her for it. She is handling dinner. I am not discussing dinner. His mouth tightened. For a moment, he looked like the boy who used to hide broken toys behind his back and hope I would not notice. I will get the papers, he said. When? Tomorrow morning. I looked at the clock. The workshop was scheduled to come down before noon. Tonight. He left without answering. I waited until his footsteps disappeared, then called June Mercer. June had lived beside us for 27 years. She answered on the second ring. Margaret? Are you finally home? I am at Ethan's. The silence on her end changed. You know about the house. They told me 3 hours ago. Oh, honey. I need you to tell me what happened. June took a slow breath. The sale sign had appeared 3 weeks earlier. Vanessa told the neighbors I had decided to move permanently because of my health. Several people came through the house. A photographer. An inspector. 2 contractors. And one man I did not recognize, June said. Vanessa took him into Robert's workshop. When? About 10 days ago. Did he carry anything? A metal case. Like measuring equipment. My grip tightened around the phone. June said she had taken a photograph of the sale sign because the whole thing felt wrong. A moment later, the picture appeared on my screen. The house stood behind the sign. The workshop door was open. Inside, a white chalk rectangle marked the concrete floor. I knew that exact spot. Years earlier, Robert had stopped Ethan from installing a heavy workbench there. He had said only one thing. Never drill into that section. At the time, I thought he was protecting a pipe. Now I was no longer sure. I enlarged the photograph. The chalk marks were recent. Someone had already found the place Robert wanted left alone. And tomorrow morning, they planned to tear it open. Ethan returned 20 minutes later with a thin folder. This is everything Vanessa gave me, he said. It was not everything. There was no original power of attorney. No medical report with the evaluator's full credentials. No closing statement showing where the money had gone. Only copies. I set the folder aside. Where are the house plans? He frowned. What plans? The blueprints your father kept in the hall cabinet. I don't know. You packed the cabinet. Vanessa hired movers. Of course she had. I opened the third box near the closet. It held old tax records, appliance manuals, and a rolled bundle secured with a rubber band. The blueprints were inside. Robert had marked them for years in red pencil. New porch steps. Updated plumbing. The workshop he added behind the garage. I spread the largest sheet across the bed. Ethan stood in the doorway while I measured the workshop with my eyes. The dimensions were wrong. The building was shown as 18 feet deep. I knew it was closer to 24. Robert had added cabinets along the back wall after the original inspection, but 6 feet could not disappear into cabinets. I found his folding wooden ruler at the bottom of the box. He carried it for nearly 40 years. One edge was stained with varnish. 3 numbers had been carved into the back. April 17, 62. That could be a date, Ethan said. Your father was 16 in 1962. Maybe it belonged to someone else. No. He bought this after we married. I called June again. She came to the phone chewing something. Peanut brittle, she explained. Stress requires sugar. I read the numbers. She became quiet. Margaret, that sounds like a county record reference. How would you know? My husband used to file building permits. Older records were numbered by book, page, and entry. The ruler was not a key. It was a direction. I looked at the blueprint again. A section of the workshop had never appeared on the plan. Not a full room. More like a raised floor and built-in storage Robert had created later. Something meant to be overlooked. Ethan stepped closer. Mom, you should let a lawyer handle this. A lawyer cannot stop a demolition crew before breakfast. You can't go there alone. I won't. I called Thomas Caldwell. He answered after 4 rings. His voice was cautious. Mrs. Whitaker? You bought my house. A pause. I bought the property through a legal closing. I am not calling to argue about that. What do you want? 1 hour inside the workshop before your contractor starts. I already postponed work once for the inspection. You were not told the truth about my consent. That is a serious accusation. Yes. Another pause. Then I heard papers moving. If you damage anything, I will stop you immediately. Understood. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll be there. He lowered his voice. Mrs. Whitaker, what exactly are you looking for? I stared at the missing 6 feet on the blueprint. I don't know yet. That does not inspire confidence. It should. Why? Because Robert never hid things without a reason. I ended the call. Ethan folded his arms. You're really going? Yes. With your hip? My hip was repaired. I picked up the wooden ruler. My judgment was not removed. At 8 the next morning, Thomas Caldwell would open the door to a house that no longer legally belonged to me. And I would have 1 hour to prove that someone had built their entire plan around the part they believed no one would ever question. Thomas Caldwell was waiting beside the front steps when June and I arrived. He wore a brown jacket and held a ring of keys in one hand. For a moment, none of us spoke. The house looked exactly as it had when I left for surgery. The same white porch rail. The same maple tree leaning over the driveway. The same brass numbers Robert had screwed beside the door. Only the lock was different. Thomas noticed me looking at it. The company changed it after closing, he said. I assumed they would. June stood beside me carrying the blueprints and Robert's wooden ruler. Thomas looked at my walker, then at the workshop behind the garage. You said you needed 1 hour. I do. I need to be clear. I bought this property in good faith. I believe you. His expression softened slightly. My daughter lost her husband 2 years ago. She and my granddaughter are moving here with me. That stopped me. I had pictured a man buying the house to tear it apart and sell it again. Instead, Thomas had sold his condominium and used most of his savings to create a home for his family. If the sale was cancelled, he would not simply lose an investment. He could lose the place they planned to live. I am sorry, I said. So am I. He unlocked the front door. Inside, furniture had been covered with plastic. Paint samples rested on the fireplace mantel. A stack of flooring catalogs sat where Robert used to leave the Sunday paper. Thomas handed me a folder. These are copies from the closing. I opened it while June moved toward the hallway. The documents appeared complete. Ethan's signature was there. The power of attorney was attached. So was the medical evaluation claiming I could not manage financial decisions during my recovery. The evaluator's name was Dr. Alan Reese. I had never met him. That is not my doctor, I said. Thomas studied my face. You are certain? My surgeon was Dr. Patel. My rehabilitation physician was Dr. Connolly. He looked toward the papers again. Then someone has a serious problem. We entered the dining room. The oak table Robert built nearly 30 years earlier remained in the center, hidden beneath a gray construction tarp. I pulled the cover back. Near one corner was a shallow dent. Ethan had made it at age 9 when he dropped a cast-iron toy truck. Robert had pretended to be angry, then spent an hour teaching him how to sand the edge smooth. My fingers rested over the mark. Thomas watched quietly. This was your family table. It still is. A truck door slammed outside. Thomas checked his watch. They are early. Through the window, 3 workers unloaded tools near the garage. A foreman walked toward the workshop carrying rolled plans. Thomas stepped onto the porch. I told you not to begin before 9. The schedule changed, the man said. We were instructed to remove the workshop first. Instructed by whom? He checked his clipboard. Vanessa Whitaker. Thomas turned toward me. I held Robert's ruler tighter. Vanessa had no legal reason to direct work on a house she had already sold. Unless she was afraid of what we might find inside. Thomas stepped between the foreman and the workshop door. No work begins until I say so. The foreman looked confused. Mrs. Whitaker authorized the schedule. I own the property now, Thomas said. And I did not authorize demolition. The man checked his clipboard again. She said it was urgent. That is becoming obvious. Thomas told the crew to wait by the truck. Then he turned to me. You have 45 minutes. June lifted the rolled blueprints. That is generous for a woman with one good hip and a husband who had clues like a county detective. Robert was not dramatic, I said. June looked at the workshop. He built a secret floor. That is a fair point. The workshop smelled of sawdust, machine oil, and old pine. Most of Robert's tools were gone. The pegboard was empty except for outlines where his hammers and clamps had hung. A chalk rectangle marked the rear section of the floor. June unrolled the plans across the workbench. The missing space should be here. The concrete looked ordinary. Then I noticed one square near the back wall had a slightly different color. I handed Thomas the wooden ruler. 6 feet from the inside corner. He measured carefully. The ruler ended at the edge of the discolored square. June knelt and brushed away dust. A small letter had been scratched into the surface. R. Thomas found a narrow seam around the square. This is not part of the original floor. Robert had created a removable panel, but it had been sealed beneath years of paint and dust. The foreman loaned us a flat pry bar after Thomas promised no one would blame him for the delay. It took all 3 of them to lift the section. Underneath was a shallow cavity lined with cedar boards. No money. No jewelry. No legal document that solved everything. Only a maintenance ledger, a county records receipt, a small brass key, and an old cassette tape inside a plastic case. The label was written in Robert's block handwriting. For Margaret. Only if the house becomes an argument. My throat tightened. June touched my shoulder. Thomas looked away, giving me a moment I had not asked for but needed. I picked up the tape. Robert's voice might still be inside it. But a recording could not stop a demolition crew or reverse a sale. The ledger might. I opened it on the workbench. Robert had documented every repair he made. Roof patches. Water heater replacements. Foundation cracks. Property tax dates. Near the final pages, his neat handwriting became darker, as though he had pressed harder with the pen. April 12th. Vanessa asked again about borrowing against the house. April 18th. Told her no. House is not collateral for her business. May 3rd. Ethan says I should reconsider. I read the line twice. Ethan had known about Vanessa's financial trouble long before my surgery. Thomas leaned over the book. What business? I turned the page. Robert had written the company name beside a loan amount. Golden Years Adult Day Services. Vanessa's business. The number beneath it was larger than I expected. $186,000. June let out a slow breath. That is not a temporary problem. No, I said. Outside, the foreman called that our time was almost over. Thomas closed the workshop door. The work is postponed for 48 hours. I looked at him. You said you were not choosing my side. I'm not. He pointed to the ledger. But someone tried to rush me into destroying the one room connected to that debt. I picked up the county receipt and Robert's brass key. The house had not given me proof yet. It had given me a direction. And for the first time, I knew Vanessa had not sold my home because she thought I was unsafe. She had sold it because Robert had refused to turn it into money. June insisted we stop for coffee before going to the county records office. You have not eaten, she said. I am not hungry. That has never stopped me. The diner stood beside the old highway, 5 miles from Maple Street. Robert used to bring me there after long Saturdays in the workshop. He always ordered eggs, even at 2 in the afternoon. June ordered pie. For breakfast? It has fruit. I almost smiled. For 10 minutes, we spoke about nothing important. The coffee was too hot. The waitress called everyone honey. A ceiling fan clicked once every turn. Then June folded her hands around her cup. Vanessa asked Robert for money more than once. I looked at her. How do you know? She came over while I was helping him stain the porch rail. She said her business had expanded too quickly. She wanted him to borrow against the house. What did he say? No. That sounds like Robert. He told her the house was your security. June lowered her voice. Ethan was there too. I stopped stirring my coffee. What did he say? He told Robert it was only a loan. He said helping Vanessa would protect the whole family. The words sat between us. Robert's ledger had not shown one conversation. It had shown a pattern. At the county records office, an older clerk examined the receipt from the workshop. The numbers on Robert's wooden ruler matched the file reference. She disappeared into a back room and returned with a thick folder. The first document was a family protection trust. Robert had placed the house inside it 7 years earlier. I read the conditions slowly. The property could be sold only if I signed voluntarily. Or if 2 independent physicians certified that I could no longer make financial decisions. 2 physicians. The sale packet contained 1 medical evaluation. Dr. Alan Reese. The clerk frowned when she checked the digital record. There are 2 verification codes, she said. But only 1 report. What does the second code belong to? She typed again. 1 is connected to your rehabilitation physician, Dr. Connolly. My chest tightened. Dr. Connolly never declared me incompetent. The clerk looked uncomfortable. I can only tell you what was uploaded. And the second code? She entered the number twice. Then she turned the screen slightly toward me. The clinic name appeared in small black letters. Northridge Cognitive Services. The office had closed 11 months earlier. That cannot be right, June said. The clerk opened the registration page. The former business address was listed below the clinic name. I recognized it. The same suite number appeared on several statements Vanessa had once left at our house. It belonged to the accounting firm that handled Golden Years Adult Day Services. Vanessa's company. I asked for certified copies of everything. The clerk said it would take an hour. While we waited, my phone rang. Ethan. I let it ring once more before answering. Mom, where are you? At the county records office. Silence. Then his voice changed. Why? Because your father placed the house in a trust. Another silence. I looked at June. She was watching my face. Ethan, I said, did you know the house required 2 medical evaluations before it could be sold? He did not answer. That was when I understood the next truth. Vanessa may have built the plan. But my son had been standing close enough to see its foundation. Ethan was waiting in the parking lot when June and I left the county records office. He stood beside his car with both hands in his jacket pockets. For a moment, he looked relieved to see me. Then he noticed the certified documents under my arm. Mom, we need to talk. Yes, I said. We do. June opened the passenger door of my car. I'll wait inside. Ethan glanced toward her. This is family. June raised one eyebrow. So am I today. I almost smiled. Then I turned back to my son. Did you know the house required 2 medical evaluations before it could be sold? He looked toward the courthouse entrance. Vanessa said the paperwork was handled. That was not my question. His jaw tightened. I knew there were medical forms. How many? I don't know. Did you know one came from a clinic that had already closed? His face changed. Not surprise. Recognition. That hurt more. You knew the clinic name, I said. Vanessa mentioned it. When? A few weeks before closing. I held the documents against my chest. Why didn't you call me? You were recovering. I had a telephone. You were exhausted. You were taking medication. Every time we brought up the house, you became upset. You never brought up selling it. He rubbed the back of his neck. We knew you would say no. The parking lot seemed very still. A delivery truck passed on the street behind us. Somewhere nearby, a car alarm chirped once. I waited for Ethan to correct himself. He did not. You knew I would refuse, I said. So you made sure I never had the chance. That is not what happened. Then tell me what happened. He looked down. Vanessa's business was in trouble. The house needed repairs. You could not live there alone. We thought selling it would solve several problems. We? He closed his eyes briefly. Yes. The word landed harder than anything Vanessa had said. Not because Ethan had planned every detail. Because he had accepted the result before asking whether it was right. Did you know she expanded the power of attorney? No. Did you know the medical evaluation was false? No. Did you know she wanted the workshop removed immediately? No. Then what did you know? He took a breath. I knew she intended to use the house money to cover part of the business debt. My fingers tightened around the folder. How much? Not all of it. That was not my question. 100,000. Robert's ledger showed a larger debt. Vanessa had planned to use more than she told Ethan. But he had still agreed to use my home as the answer. There is something else, he said. I said nothing. I asked that part of the proceeds be placed into Claire's college account. Claire was his 17-year-old daughter. My granddaughter. A kind girl who still called me every Sunday. How much? 75,000. I stared at him. He spoke quickly. I thought Dad would have wanted to help her. I thought using part of the house for her future made sense. The house was not yours to give. I know that now. No. You knew it then. His eyes filled, but I did not look away. You were afraid I would say no, I said. So you used my future to pay for hers. Mom. I opened the car door. He reached toward me, then stopped. I was trying to protect my family. I looked at him over the roof of the car. I was your family too. Then I got inside. For the first time, I understood that Vanessa had not acted alone. She had built the plan. But Ethan had opened the door and stepped aside. June found the cassette player in a cabinet beneath her television. It was older than both of us wanted to admit. She wiped dust from the buttons, plugged it in, and pressed play. Nothing happened. Then she hit the side with her palm. The machine clicked. "That is how technology worked in 1998, she said. Despite everything, I laughed. The tape began with static. Then Robert's voice filled the room. "Margaret, if you are hearing this, the house has become an argument." I closed my eyes. 16 months had passed since I heard him speak. His voice was lower than I remembered. Tired, but steady. He said Vanessa had asked him more than once to borrow against the house. At first, he believed she was desperate, not dishonest. Then Ethan joined the conversation. Robert said our son kept repeating the same phrase. "The house will belong to the family eventually." Robert paused on the recording. "A house does not belong to people eventually," he said. "It belongs to someone now." June sat beside me without speaking. Robert explained that he created the trust because he feared Ethan and Vanessa were beginning to see the property as available money. He did not accuse them of planning a sale. He simply wanted to make certain no one could decide for me. Then his voice changed. There was shame in it. "I need to tell you something else, Maggie." Only Robert called me that. After I retired, I considered selling the house and buying something smaller. I spoke to a real estate agent. I even looked at 2 places. I opened my eyes. He had never told me. "I convinced myself it would be easier for you," he continued. "Less maintenance. Fewer stairs. Less worry." The words sounded painfully familiar. "I was making a decision for you before asking what you wanted." I stopped because I realized care can become control when the person being cared for has no voice. My hands trembled in my lap. Robert had seen the same mistake in himself. That did not excuse Ethan. But it changed the shape of my anger. The tape hissed. Then Robert spoke one final time. "If they ever make you choose between peace and your own voice, do not mistake silence for peace." The recording ended. For several minutes, June and I sat quietly. The cassette had not given me enough evidence to reverse the sale. It had given me something harder. A question about how long my family had been confusing love with authority. June removed the tape. "There was another note on the label," she said. In smaller handwriting, Robert had written. "The key opens the workshop cabinet." I looked at the brass key in my hand. "The cabinet is gone." June nodded. "Then someone moved it." I called Thomas. He checked the inventory from the closing company. A metal filing cabinet had been removed from the workshop 3 days before he received the keys. The pickup receipt listed the destination. Midwest Title Storage. Thomas read the final line twice. Requested by Vanessa Whitaker. The cassette had given me Robert's warning. The missing cabinet might contain the proof. And Vanessa had reached it before I did. Midwest Title Storage occupied a low brick building behind an office park. Thomas met June and me near the loading entrance. He carried the closing inventory and a copy of his deed. "I called ahead," he said. "They claim the cabinet is scheduled for disposal." "Today?" June asked. "This afternoon." Vanessa had moved quickly. Inside, a young employee searched the computer. "Yes," she said. "One gray metal filing cabinet. Removal requested by Vanessa Whitaker." "I own the contents transferred with the property," Thomas said. "The cabinet was listed in my closing inventory." The employee looked uncertain. "We were told it contained abandoned papers." "Then you were told incorrectly." A manager joined us. For 15 minutes, he repeated policy language. Thomas remained calm. He placed each document on the counter. The inventory. The purchase agreement. The storage receipt. Finally, the manager agreed to delay disposal while legal ownership was reviewed. Thomas leaned closer. You do not need to decide ownership today. You only need to stop destroying something connected to a disputed sale. That changed the conversation. 10 minutes later, the cabinet was rolled into a small inspection room. Its paint was scratched. One drawer had been forced halfway open. The bottom drawer remained locked. I inserted Robert's brass key. It turned smoothly. Inside were folders arranged by year. Robert had labeled everything. Taxes. Repairs. Insurance. Trust documents. Then I found a file marked Golden Years. It contained 3 letters from Vanessa. The first asked Robert to guarantee a business loan. The second requested permission to use the house as collateral. The third was less polite. She wrote that refusing to help would endanger Ethan and Claire's future. Robert had written one sentence across the final page. No one protects a family by risking another person's home without consent. June found another folder. Inside was the original power of attorney I had signed before surgery. It allowed Ethan to pay medical bills, utilities, and property taxes. It specifically excluded the sale or transfer of real estate. The document used at closing contained an added page. That page expanded Ethan's authority. The paper looked newer. The font was slightly different. But that did not prove who created it. Thomas studied both copies. This shows the closing document was altered. It does not show by whom, I said. There was no convenient confession. No recording of Vanessa changing the paperwork. No miracle waiting in the drawer. Only a trail. The final folder contained a visitor log Robert kept after he became suspicious. Vanessa's name appeared 6 times. Ethan's appeared twice. One visit occurred 3 days before my surgery. Beside it, Robert had written. Asked again about power of attorney. Ethan said it was only for emergencies. My chest tightened. Thomas opened the altered document again. Margaret. He pointed near the bottom of the added page. The witness line carried a familiar signature. Ethan Whitaker. My son had not merely failed to stop the sale. He had signed the page that made it possible. The meeting took place the next morning at Midwest Title Company. Vanessa arrived first. She wore a navy suit and carried a leather folder as though this were an ordinary business appointment. Ethan came in behind her. He looked exhausted. Thomas sat across from them beside a representative from the title insurance company. A lawyer for Robert's family trust joined by video. I placed the original power of attorney on the table. Then I set the altered version beside it. Vanessa looked at both documents. This is a misunderstanding, she said. No, I replied. A misunderstanding happens when 2 people hear different words. This required someone to add a page. She turned toward Ethan. You told me your mother agreed. Ethan stared at her. You told me the page only expanded the authority for emergency expenses. It did. It authorized the sale of her house. Vanessa's voice sharpened. The house needed to be sold. Margaret could not safely return there. That was not your decision, Thomas said. Vanessa ignored him. She looked directly at me. You agreed the house was becoming difficult. I agreed the roof needed work. You said the stairs worried you. They did. You were confused after surgery. I called for my husband once. You forgot he was gone. For less than a minute. The trust lawyer spoke through the screen. Mrs. Whitaker, did you authorize Dr. Alan Reese or Northridge Cognitive Services to evaluate you? No. Vanessa opened her folder. The evaluation was arranged through a referral. By whom? I asked. She hesitated. Golden Years uses several medical consultants. The room went quiet. Her business had arranged the assessment used to declare me unable to manage my own property. The title representative wrote something down. I looked at Ethan. Did you witness the added page? He rubbed his hands together. I signed where Vanessa showed me. Did you read it? Not carefully. Did you know it involved the house? He looked at the floor. Yes. Vanessa turned toward him. Ethan. He did not look at her. I knew she wanted to sell it, he said. I knew Mom would refuse. I told myself it was better to finish everything before she came home. The truth was finally in the room. Not hidden beneath concrete. Not locked in a cabinet. Spoken by my son. Vanessa leaned back. Someone had to make the adult decision. I folded my hands on the table. You made a decision for an adult. That is not the same thing. The title representative cleared his throat. Based on the conflicting documents and the trust restrictions, the sale may be voided. Thomas looked toward him. How long would reimbursement take? Possibly several months. Thomas had already sold his condominium. His daughter had given notice on her apartment. Canceling the sale immediately would restore my rights while leaving another family without a home. Vanessa watched me carefully. She expected anger to make the decision for me. Robert had warned me about that. The trust lawyer asked, Margaret, how would you like us to proceed? I looked at Ethan. Then Vanessa. Then Thomas. I want all renovations stopped, I said. No money moved. No documents destroyed. And the sale? Vanessa asked. I have not decided what justice looks like yet. Thomas met me at the house that afternoon. The dining room was quiet. Robert's table stood uncovered beneath the window. Thomas placed both hands on the back of a chair. My daughter has already packed, he said. My granddaughter starts school nearby next month. I know. If the sale is cancelled, I understand. His voice was steady, but disappointment sat behind it. Thomas had not lied to me. He had not altered a document or questioned my ability to think. Yet restoring my rights could still damage his family. Justice was not as simple as returning every person to where they had started. The title insurance representative joined us by phone. The company agreed to reimburse Thomas, but the process could take several months. I proposed another arrangement. The sale would be formally cancelled. The property would return to the family trust. Thomas could remain in the house for 6 months under a temporary lease for $1. That would give his family time to find another home without rushing. He stared at me. You would allow us to stay? You bought the house honestly. And you were forced out dishonestly. Both things can be true. Thomas looked toward Robert's table. Your husband would have liked you. I smiled faintly. Most days, he did. The financial terms for Ethan and Vanessa were less gentle. Vanessa would sell her remaining interest in Golden Year's adult day services. The money would be used to repay the funds taken from the house sale. Ethan would restore Claire's college account using his own income. Not mine. Not Robert's trust. His. When they arrived, Vanessa carried no folder. Ethan looked older than he had the day before. He stood near the doorway. Mom, I am sorry. I waited. I knew you would refuse, he continued. So I let Vanessa make the decision before you could stop us. That is the truth. I told myself I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself from hearing no. His eyes filled. Yes. I still loved him. That had never disappeared. But love did not repair trust by itself. I still love you, I said. But love is not the same as trust. He nodded. What do I do now? You stop explaining. You start asking. Vanessa remained beside the wall. Will you ever forgive me? I looked at her. Forgiveness is not a door you force open from the outside. Her face tightened, but she did not argue. That was a beginning. Before they left, I asked Ethan to help Thomas move Robert's table away from the construction equipment. He placed one hand beneath the heavy oak edge. Am I allowed to come back tomorrow? Tomorrow has to be earned. Together, they carried the table into the center of the room. For the first time since my surgery, every decision in that house belonged to me again. Not because I had defeated my family. Because I had finally stopped allowing them to confuse my silence with permission. 6 months later, I moved back into the house. Not because anyone decided it was best for me. Because I decided I was ready. Thomas found a smaller home 3 blocks from his daughter. The title company completed his reimbursement, and he left Robert's table exactly where we had placed it. Before moving in, I made changes. I added a handrail beside the back steps. I replaced the loose bathroom tile. I hired a woman named Denise to help with groceries and heavy cleaning twice a week. Ethan offered to choose a contractor. I told him I already had. He paused, then nodded. Do you want me to check the estimate? No. All right. That simple answer meant more than another apology. He was learning that helping began with asking. June helped me hang the curtains. She stood on the floor and gave instructions while I sat safely in a chair. You are enjoying this too much, I told her. I have waited 27 years to tell you your curtain rods were crooked. Claire visited the following Saturday. She stood in the workshop doorway with tears in her eyes. Grandma, I didn't know about the college money. I know. I don't want it if it came from your house. It has already been returned. She looked frightened. Are you angry with me? I opened my arms. Never for something you did not choose. Ethan began restoring the workshop on weekends. He asked before moving every cabinet. Before replacing a shelf. Before throwing away a single rusted screw. Vanessa sold her share of golden years and began repaying the missing funds. She did not come to the house for several months. Then, on the first Sunday in October, the doorbell rang. She stood on the porch holding a box of documents and Robert's maintenance ledger. I found these in the office, she said. They belong here. I took the box. She did not step forward. May I come in? That was the first time she had asked. I moved aside. You may come in. She looked relieved. But this time, I said, you asked before deciding where anything belongs. Inside, Ethan and Claire were setting the table. June had brought apple pie. The wooden ruler Robert used for 40 years rested in the center beside the flowers. Vanessa sat across from me. I had not forgotten what she did. Forgiveness did not erase responsibility. And love did not automatically restore trust. But for the first time, no one at that table was pretending silence meant agreement. I once believed keeping peace meant avoiding the word no. Robert had been right. Silence was not peace. Sometimes peace began when a woman finally used her own voice. Now I would like to hear yours. Do you think Margaret was right to let Vanessa return, or would you have closed the door for good? To leave a comment, scroll below the video, tap add a comment, type your answer, then tap post. Tap the thumbs up button if Margaret's story touched you. Then tap subscribe below the video so you can join us for the next family story. If you see a small bell, tap it and choose all. Tap share to send this story to someone who may need to hear it.